Hi, my name's Cheese, and welcome to another Fossil Sweeper Progress Update video. If you haven't heard of the project before, you can find an overview here, but the TLDR is, it's like Minesweeper, but you're digging up fossils, and you get to build skeletons out of the stuff you find. For the past month or so, I've divided my attention between some dig phase background work, and getting an implementation of the new research phase integrated with the rest of the game. I've also tagged version 0.2, which we'll talk about later in the video. After tagging version 0.2, I started to put some work into dig biome stuff. I'm still working out what the final list will be, but using concept art I shared in the last video as a guide, I created background assets for a boulder-filled rocky valley, a snowy mountain, a sandy desert, some not very convincing scrubland, a red desert, a savanna, and a rainforest. These are temporary for now, but give me the bits and pieces I need to differentiate between locations when I expand the map to include the rest of the world, and has helped me refine the relationship between locations, sites, and biomes. Dig sites now have a formation date, and a window of certainty that gets applied to each chunk and misc fossil excavated. I'm looking forward to eventually surfacing this information in the museum when expecting specimens. Peter has created another music track for the dig phase, which I really like. At the moment we're intending to use this one for coastal biomes. Along with a few other minor tweaks, the Temp Museum has some brighter, more welcoming default lighting, in line with the mock-up that I made early last year. Continuing on with work that I mentioned in the last video, I've gotten the research phase integrated with the rest of the game. This is still a first pass and needs a lot of work, but with this in place, every gameplay phase is now represented, which is pretty exciting for me. The research phase allows players to dedicate their surplus fossils to research in exchange for museum content. Currently, my planned categories of research items include additional museum rooms, skeleton mounts, informational displays, lights, furniture, barriers, and decals. I'm also planning to allow dig abilities to be unlocked here as well. Every research item can have its own requirements, so an informational display on Jurassic carnivores might require a bunch of fossils from Jurassic carnivores, or an informational display on hadrosaur diets might need misc fossils of Cretaceous plants. All of this picks up some design slack that the organic accumulation of surplus fossils ends up creating. I could weight the probability of finding any fossil pieces that the player doesn't currently have, but I find that this makes finally accumulating all of the bits needed to finish building a skeleton much less exciting. In fact, now that I have something for surplus fossils to do, I'm open to the idea of doing things like making sauropod skulls more rare, which reflects what we find in the real world. The research phase lets me tune things in a way that gives context-specific purpose for surplus fossils, like those earlier examples, while also allowing me to have things like chairs and light fittings with more loose requirements that can gobble up whatever a player feels they have too much of. Research items take time to complete, and time only passes when visiting a dig site or working on assembling a skeleton. This means that, in addition to giving players something to do with the stuff they have left over after completing the map, dig, assembly loop, it also guides them back into the core of the game. Since the majority of research items are stuff that allows players to expand and enhance their museums, it also feeds into that larger gameplay loop as well. I don't have any UI that communicates research progress nicely, but even without that, it still feels exciting to me when I come back from a dig site knowing that some research is just completed. Peter's already put together a music track to go with the research phase, aiming to create something that gives a sense of a meandering holding pattern. As part of work on the dig biome stuff I mentioned earlier, I put some time into refactoring my settings UI generation code to be more general purpose and made an in-game framework for creating and editing arbitrary data structures. The biome configurator is the first one of these, and it handles a bunch of different levels of detail, which I split up in a way that should allow me to mix and match foregrounds and backgrounds for more flexibility. Longer term, I'll be expanding this to include other definitions and structures, which will allow me to tweak and tune some of the game's content without having to go back to an external editor. Adding the research phase represents a pretty big milestone for the project, and that felt like the right time to tag a new version, which is developer speak for making a new version number. Since itch doesn't let you change the file name that a channel's download uses, I wanted to tag a new version anyway, so that testers wouldn't be still downloading Bonesweeper v0.1.zip anymore. My build system automatically makes a new channel every time there's a minor version increment, so that all happened automatically. thanks past me. Pre-release version numbers are super arbitrary, but closing this last gameplay loop feels significant, and it's nice to mark the occasion. Crossing this threshold also makes me feel like I can now properly show the game's shape as a whole, and it starts to put me in a better position to appreciate what I'll need to polish up in order to have a vertical slice of the game ready to use for marketing stuff. A very big thank you to the supporters going by on screen at the moment. Their support has helped me eat while making this game, and I am so very appreciative. A huge thanks also to Screen Tasmania, who supported this project with a small grant. Anyway, that's about it for today. If you'd like to keep track of development or try the playable prototype, there are links in the description. And if you're super keen to try out what we've talked about here today, I make early test builds available to my supporters on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and goodbye!